The major scale is an excellent point of comparison for all other scales and modes. If we label the major scale, also known as the Ionian mode, with the scale degrees 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, then the Dorian mode would have the scale degrees 1, 2, flat or minor 3, 4, 5, 6, flat or minor 7. When writing Dorian mode melodies, you want to try and highlight the notes that create a uniquely Dorian sound. These will be the notes that differ to other modes and scales. The points of difference from major are the flat 3 and flat 7 notes. The third note of a scale is important as it will reveal the quality of the scale. Third will have a major sound and flat third will have a minor sound. It's also worth comparing Dorian with the natural minor scale / Aeolian mode. In relation to the major scale, that has the notes 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6 and flat 7. The point of difference here is the natural 6th note. This also separates Dorian from other minor scales. So two notes we really want to focus on are the flat 3 and the 6. Let's look at an example now to explore the mode further. A Dorian has the notes A, B, C, D, E, F sharp and G. Here's a very simple melody that highlights the flat third and 6th notes C and F sharp. We want to focus on these notes to bring out the Dorian flavour, but what else can we do to achieve this? If you play notes on a strong beat, then they are felt more and stand out. In a 4/4 time signature, with 4 beats in a bar, this would be beats 1 and 3, with the first beat being the strongest. Listen to the following example. In bars 1 and 2, the flat 3 and 6 notes, C and F sharp, are on weak beats. In the second half, they fall on strong beats 1 and 3. I want to give you a few melody tips now. These aren't exclusive to the Dorian mode, but can help you think about melodies more generally. The main tip would be to keep it simple. In most styles of music, vocal melodies are repetitive, simple, and cover a limited range. Don't overcomplicate your melodies, and you won't go far wrong. For example, look at this basic melody in A Dorian. When creating melodies, it is important to consider the shape of the pattern. Melodies can move downwards or upwards, in small steps or big leaps. Balancing the movement or shape of the melody is another important part of creating and maintaining interest. Look out for the leaps and steps in this Dorian example. Another thing to think about in your melodies is breaks. Breaks allow a melody to breathe and break up your phrases. They can also allow you to create question and answer or call and response sections. Here's a Dorian example of this. Listen to how the separation of the phrases allows them to sound like they respond to one another. I said that placing a note on strong beats can make it stand out. Another thing that can highlight a particular note is making it the highest note in a phrase. This could be used to highlight a key note in your Dorian melody, or if you have lyrics, it could be to showcase an important word. In this next example, I'll end each phrase with the flat 3 and 6th notes, C and F sharp, that we highlighted as being key to the Dorian sound. Melodies don't live in isolation. They have a strong relationship with harmony, that is, with chord progressions. Let's look at how this relationship works now. A melody can be written from two broad approaches. You can write the melody first and then fit chords to the melody, or you can write the chords first and then the melody. The second approach is the most common, probably because it is easy to strum chords on a guitar or play them on a piano and then sing along. If you have an existing Dorian key chord progression, you can start with this and then create a melody for it. We can of course use the ideas and techniques that we've already discussed, but now we have some more things to consider. The easiest way to build a melody from chords is just to use chord notes. Each chord will be constructed with several notes, and whilst that chord is playing, we can use these notes to create a melody. For example, a basic Dorian chord progression alternates from 1 to 4. In the key of A Dorian, these chords would be A minor and D major. A minor has the notes A, C and E, whilst D major has the notes D, F sharp and A. In the next example, I'll construct a melody using only these chord tones. These chords share the A note, so also listen out for how this sounds when it's held over the chord change. Now we'll use the same chord progression, but instead of chord notes, I'll use the other 4 notes from the A Dorian mode. The chord note melody feels really safe, and if you place these notes on the strong beats in the bar, it feels even safer. Notes from outside of the chord sound tenser and unsettled. The level of tension depends on several factors. If it's in the scale of the key, then it will have some tension, and then if you want greater tension, you can reach out for chromatic or alien notes. Writing a melody is a balancing act, building up tension and then using these other notes to resolve it. Something you may have seen in songs is the use of borrowed chords. This is where we take chords from a parallel key and use them in our current key. A parallel key has the same root or tonic note, so with our examples in the key of A Dorian, we could borrow from A major, A minor, A mixolydian, etc. This introduces chromatic notes to the song that are outside of the existing key. These tense alien notes can be very noticeable in your melodies. But as discussed earlier, if we use chord notes, then they feel safer. Look at the following example with the chords 1, 4, flat 6 and 7. There is a single chromatic note F. It is the only chromatic note used. It falls on beat 2 of the 3rd bar, so it is not prominent and features in the underlying borrowed chord F major. Have a listen to how something feels different with this chord and note, and yet it doesn't sound out of place. This flat 6 borrowed chord can come from the parallel natural minor / Aeolian, Phrygian and Locrian modes. Here's the A Aeolian mode note in comparison to the A Dorian mode. As highlighted earlier, the only difference is the natural 6th note. Here that is the F note. We already saw that this can be played over the F chord. An interesting way you can play with and highlight these chromatic notes is to repeat a phrase from earlier in the melody where the only thing that changes is this note. The closer the original note is to the changed chromatic note, the subtler the effect. Look at the phrase in bar 2 of this next example. It is repeated 3 times, but note the subtle change from F sharp to F over the borrowed chord F major. As mentioned earlier, this flat 6 chord can also be borrowed from the parallel Phrygian mode. If we compare A Phrygian with our key of A Dorian, then you can see that there are 2 notes that are different, F and B flat. Using this, we could expand on our phrase over the F chord to incorporate both of these notes. Here's the last example altered to accommodate this change. Listen to the difference the flat 2 note brings, and how it is tenser because it isn't in the underlying F major chord. These have been examples of modal mixture or modal interchange. These are just other terms for describing what we have done, mixing chords and notes from the parallel modes or scales. Of course, you don't have to use the chromatic notes over the borrowed chord if you don't want to, but be mindful that you may create tension. For example, playing the F sharp note whilst F is in the underlying chord will stand out. Use your chord tones to create safety and see how it sounds. For example, in the next melody, I shift up the whole phrase to accommodate chord tones without using chromatic notes. In another video on the channel, I created a chord progression in the key of A Dorian. I've written a melody for it here. This uses techniques and ideas that we've discussed throughout. You can see that it has chords beyond standard minor and major, which I haven't covered in this video. But don't panic, the same rules apply. You just have a greater range of notes in the chord that can feel safe in your melody. Indeed, this is something songwriters do if they have an existing melody and want to match chords to it. Utilising different chord types can accommodate melody notes and make them feel safer. The bridge section has a melodic solo part. Never forget that a melody can be used as a solo for guitar or any other instrument. It can be the whole solo or connect other licks and riffs. Follow along, listen to the melody, and then have a go at writing your own Dorian melody. You've learned about melodies, but there's a wide world of the Dorian mode out there. I've made a playlist just for you right here, so make sure you watch that next and improve your Dorian knowledge today.